Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is it. This is where we start to work on our final pose for the course. So this is going to be the final full figure male sculpt. Okay, and there's a few options that you can choose for yourselves for this exercise. I'm going to work through the one on the left, right? So you may consider, if you're on the standard enrollment course, to follow along with me. Because you won't be getting any direct feedback on your progress over the next couple weeks. People on the full enrollment course, you can choose either of the other poses just for variety, or just to go out on your own and see if you can manage all this without following along with me. Do your best either way, and I will start to step through this. Okay, so really this video is about posing what we have already in our Zsphere rig. Okay, so roughly we have the length of all the joints of this guy correct. We know that because we took a few measurements, and now we just need to articulate him. Okay, so really I hope you guys have had a chance to look through the different poses and see what they're about as far as the kind of the weight and the balance and the overall tension in the pose, right? Because this is what becomes quite a bit artistic, right? In addition to just creating form as a sculptor, you have to create balance as well. And all of our little exercises up till now have kind of ignored that fact because we've been just merely concentrating on form. But in the higher order of things, balance and weight and gesture are really important. Okay, so this is going to be an iterative process to get there, but we really want to just start to block in some of the dynamics of the pose, and this is going to probably go a little bit slow just because I'm kind of talking as I go, and I want to show you guys kind of step by step the things to consider. But it's important to really kind of attend to the different postures and joint angles. And kind of the big thing is, how does he establish his weight on his feet and where his pelvis sits over top of those, and how is his pelvis oriented actually. And in this particular pose, you can see in a couple side views that he actually has quite a forward lean to his pelvis, right? So we need to probably get in with our Z-spheres and actually rotate at the roots of this guy. So this pose is this is particularly telling. To get there, I'm actually, and to make things easier for me, I'm going to rotate his arms up a little bit just so they're out of the way of the hips. And actually we have to get up there anyways at some point because as you can see, he has both his arms raised in this pose. Okay, so this is what we're going to start to attend to. We need to really look at things like forward tilt and gesture. Okay, and for the forward tilt, there's not a great way to rotate the center sphere. So you're going to have to rotate the spine and the hips around it, and a few of our little placeholders just to get it into place, to get the impression of the forward tilt. That's kind of one of the limitations of the root sphere, is that it's a little bit difficult to work with, but we can kind of compensate with some of our other techniques, and it's actually fine. Okay, because none of this is going to be critical for us, as long as we get this gesture going through the pelvis. Okay. The legs are actually fairly straightforward to start with. We'll have to examine some of the subtlety of the pose as we get a little further, the width of the legs apart, the angle of the feet, the weight-bearing rear leg, how it's kind of twisted out. But let's just try to get the angles of the big masses correct to start with. Okay, and so I'm really just looking for kind of the vertical here, and I've got the gesture through the hips, and I've got a little bit of the backward stance of this leg. We'll have to twist that a little bit But for now, let's just concentrate on the big gestures. Okay, so we get the big bones in place, and then we'll worry about the finer details. Okay, so the next step as we kind of work up is to get the arch of the chest looking good. So he's actually bending back a little bit, and he's going to get a lot of arch in the small of his back, as we'll see in the different views. And let's just go around the front, and we'll resolve some of the tilt in the pelvis and the actual orientation of the hips, because it's never as straightforward as perfectly balanced, right? So always there's going to be a little bit of asymmetry on the weight side to side, right? It looked like we had the legs good in this view, but looking at this angle, we really have to get a little bit more happening in here, right? So this is going to be a little bit of a funny business to kind of get this moved around, and maybe I should have built this a little bit higher, but off of a different sphere other than the root. But we're just tipping the iliac crest a little bit, and that's going to bring up this leg a tiny bit, and we'll just depress this leg back a little bit. Okay, so this is getting kind of a not optimal through there. We could actually, if you're going to rebuild your skeleton, build it off of something other than the root, and then you'll be able to twist it a little bit. But just be aware that as you do that, if it's on the spine or on the legs, then obviously those are going to articulate with it. So this will be fine for now. Okay, so we have a little bit of weight on the right hip, or his left hip, screen right, pushing up the iliac crest, a little bit of depression there. At any time, you can just hit A to switch to your skinned mode. So this is giving us a preview of the adaptive skin, right? So A is the same as this. It's like we've seen before. And then we can just kind of read our landmarks a little better and tell if we're heading in the right direction. And it looks like we are. We've got a little bit different weights going on one leg. Yeah, that looks like it's progressing decently. And now we need to actually get some of the axis of the waist, kind of the hips. So I'm going to put a little weight over that way, and then I'm going to give them a little twist. And then we need to actually spin these Z-spheres on axis. So you just grab it, and it'll twist around its axis above and below that Z-sphere. Okay, so I'm getting axial rotation that way, and that works pretty well. Okay, and now let's just try to get some of the gesture of the arms to be a little bit better. So I'm going to get the elevation of the humerus to be about right, as well as I can see. And then we're going to have to kind of rotate it axially, right? Because obviously this guy has his elbows bent. And it looks like it's roughly 90 degrees in this angle. We'll fine-tune that as we go. And probably the other elbow is about the same. Let me just flip through a couple images. Yeah, it's looking about the same. All right, so we're going to have those both about there. And see what happens as we rotate this guy axially. And really, probably we need another twist joint, but we can use this guy for the twist as well. And sometimes it's slow going to rotate these, but it takes a few iterations. And I'm actually going to pull the humerus back, right, because he's got this pulled way down to his side. And what happens when we kind of pull the humerus back like that? Well, we're going to get some rotation in the clavicle backwards, and then we're going to get some rotation and elevation in the scapula. And hopefully you can look in here and see it's doing pretty interesting things in the area of the rhomboids and the trapezius. So that's kind of a nice thing. And I think this is probably going to go down. We'll resolve that in another angle. Something like this. And actually it's going to be a bit of work for us as we get into refining this to get both hands to contact a straight kind of pull on either side across the back of the neck. So we've introduced an additional complication with this grasping, but I think it'll be an interesting challenge for us. Okay, I'm going to spin with this guy. Oh, not that way. Sorry about that. Make somebody sick at home watching me spin the model. Okay, here it goes up. And probably a little bit more. I'm going to get another angle up here so we can just get a little more information. What is okay, but probably this is the one I'm after. Okay. So this is almost, it's not quite a vertical, but it actually does kind of abduct quite a ways up. And we would expect that in order to pass this hand with a stick behind the neck. So that's kind of interesting. And probably that's good. So really you're starting to pay attention to angles here. Right, so get the stance. Looking at that, looking at the legs going down, knee coming forward. And we might just go back with the wrist just for fun. Might compensate with that. This is going to take a lot of transpose work moving forward. Really, as you'll see as we progress, this is going to get us to a good place as far as posing goes, but it's going to take a lot of refinement still. So don't think that this is going to get us all the way. And we'll just verify the scapula in the back view in a minute. And let's just get this arm rotated up again a little bit more. That's the guy we're looking for. So there's a lot of twists going on in this mesh. We probably needed an intermediate sphere right here to distribute the rotation across the humerus a little bit more, but we'll manage, and we can just do some tidying up at the end. Okay. The other thing that's going to become the bit of a time sink is, again, refining the hands and the fingers. Like I said, in the hand week, they're like little sculptures, so they require attention unto themselves and quite a bit of attention. Okay, I'm feeling like we need a little bit more twist in the waist. Maybe a little tip this way. And I'm going to see if I can put a little rotation in the top of this. Have to be careful with this one because this is kind of the intermediate where we started to grow our ribs off of. So you don't want to do too much from there. Axial rotation is okay, but anything else is probably not Yeah, if I do an adaptive skin, you can see that we have quite a bit of correction to do in this area. Let's just not show this to anybody just yet. There's still some work to do. Okay. Let's go down here. And we will distribute some rotation through the back foot. Okay, while you're doing this, I didn't mention it, but make sure you have perspective on, because it's really awkward, and your results will be not what you expect if you're working with perspective off in kind of an orthogonal view, because it's not, all this requires perspective to get these angles coming towards you and receding correctly. As far as neck goes, let's just have a look at a couple of these. I think he has just a tiny bit of look off to his left. So it's going to be kind of a twist. Do a little bit there, and I'll do a little bit up at our top axis as well. And I think he might have a little rotation this way. Okay, because we're kind of looking from this angle, and we've got foot coming towards us, chin going away. I might have tipped him a little bit too much. Something like that. Okay, and now I'm just going to give a little twist to this, get it coming forward straight. So I'm looking from this axis, hip all the way down, and we can see it here. We're going pretty well straight forward, and then we have the gesture of that leg coming back. So looking at the stance here, foot angle and foot angle coming forward. Looks to be about okay. We have a bit of a conflict here on the far arm, right? So this guy I don't think is doing nearly enough. He needs to really kind of step forward a little bit, or kind of, sorry, not step forward. He wants to go backwards a little bit. And I just need to really assess how far back he's being pulled. So it looks like he's got quite a bit of backwards pull and even rotation in the clavicles. And we did a little bit, but maybe not enough. All right, so probably what we need to do is, I might go in with the move and just grab this guy. Now we're getting somewhere. That looks a little bit better. And if I tip it like this, I'm looking right through this space to see if I can get a stick through there. And it looks like I might be able to. It actually looks like this might be up a little bit high. And again, from overhead, we can look kind of linearly and imagine along that axis. Okay, let's just look at this angle. So in this angle, I think that we still have a little bit of work to do on maybe getting the alignment of the far arm correct. I think maybe our near arm is okay. Close enough maybe to get us to transpose. Let's see, I don't know if that's going to help us. Let me see about this one. Okay, we'll go with that and see how we're doing in this angle. We're not looking bad. Along this axis, I think we might be a little pulled back, and this needs to advance a bit. And that would kind of reconcile what we were seeing in the other view as well. Okay, stick. Can you make it through there? Okay, close. I'm going to pop these out a little bit. It's little bum pegs. You can see we got a lot of gesture here, and I think maybe when we did our little rotation forward at the hips, we didn't quite treat those well enough. That would be an easy adjustment with the move brush when we start refining, but since we're here, we might as well do it. Let's just do the adaptive skin and see how we're looking. Adaptive skin, yeah, I'm pretty happy. Pretty happy. And again, you just have to start being critical about the overall angles of the gesture, right? Force coming down through here onto this hind foot. Weights being taken on the quadricep in the left leg. We have some problems here, but let's try not to worry about small kinks like that. And while I'm talking about bearing weight, we just need to make sure these guys are flat on the ground too. And so the best way to do that is to actually turn perspective off. And I often just kind of put it onto this line in the canvas just to make sure that they're bearing weight at the right angle, and they have the right tilt to them, but this guy is floating just a tiny bit. So we just have to see what we're going to do. Are we going to move this guy back, or is this guy going to come up and down a little bit? And I think probably for the sake of gesture, I'm going to put this guy's leg back a tiny bit, straighten it, and that will compensate for that small difference. Okay, so that's just a little bit more projection back, and you can see we have a really strong angle here. This will be a little bit better once we refine these shapes and pop out our knee and get things working a little bit better anatomically in there. Okay, I think that is probably close enough for now. Okay, and so we have a lot of good gesture happening, and let's see, I'm just going to flip through kind of the critical poses. Like, I think maybe this guy here is one of the more powerful ones. And so this is going to be what we want to hit. We want to hit some of the really nice shapes that this one has. And again, without perspective on, you won't see anything. Okay, so we're looking at kind of this view. And I'm imagining some more stuff happening in here, right? Obviously, we're going to have to fill in some anatomy, but I think as far as shoulders go, we're pretty good. I think maybe I'll tweak this scapula. Look at how this one is sitting at about 45 degrees, the scapulohumeral rhythm. So we'll just tweak that a bit. And then I think we'll be ready to make this into an adaptive skin and start refining. Okay, so let's just tweak our scapula down a bit. And he can do something like this as well. It's not going to slide on the rib cage correctly with our simple controls, but with a combination of rotations, you should be able to get it to do the right thing. A little bit better. I don't condone this, but this is the last. This is the last result. Last resort is to just go in and tweak that angle. And I don't know if I've actually helped matters there. So we'll just undo that, and we'll refine it as we go. There's going to be a lot of tension and stuff happening in here, so we'll pay a lot of close attention to that as we go through this. Okay, that is that for now. We're going to have a lot to do with the hands sculpturally, and a lot of refinement, but I think it'll be fun. Like, this is actually the really enjoyable part. So get ready. Okay, that is posing the Zsphere rig. Okay, now I think we're in a pretty good place to take this guy into an adaptive skin and start refining him. So what we need to do is go over here to adaptive skin, and this is just what we've been looking at. This is one subdivision. I'll probably put this to no subdivisions, and we're just going to hit make adaptive skin. And what we get is something called skin Zsphere, or whatever your guy is named. And if we grab that, you've seen it's just switched out underneath quite transparently. And from here, actually what has happened is we don't have any subdivisions on our model, because we're really just taking our level 2 that we posed and said, hey, you're the new level 1 in this skin. But we can quickly get it back with the ever useful reconstruct subdiv. So one reconstruct, and we're back to our really low base mesh. And this is the tool that we want to save as the starting point for our refinement. Okay, and this is a great place to be, because we have, again, the good topology, and just it won't take us long to unkink some of these areas that were twisted, and then we'll get in with the musculature. Okay, I hope everybody's made it this far, and this is where the fun really starts. Okay, I'll see you in the next session.